Let's look over another budget. They are both around 60 years old. They have no money set aside for retirement, and they have about $88,000 of debt. Their monthly income is $7,165, and their total monthly expenses are $7,323. This leaves them negative $128 for the month. They do have a whole life insurance policy here that they're paying $1,000 a month into. If they cancel this, which I think is probably their best option, that's going to free up an extra $1,000 in cash flow. This would put them at a positive $872 for the month. Some of that could be used to pay off the debt, and then some of it could be used to go into retirement accounts. If you're in this situation where you are close to retirement and you don't have any money set aside, it would be a good idea to talk to a financial planner to figure out what your options are. When we're in our 20s, 30s, and 40s, we have a little bit of time to play around with how we're going to plan for retirement. But at this point, I think it's best to get professional opinions because they are so close to that age. So remember, we said they have $88,000 of debt. $872 per month in cash flow won't pay that off very fast. Other options that they could have would be lowering their housing expense. They could try to get additional income to fund their retirement. This could be pet sitting, social media, cleaning houses. There are many ways that you can earn extra money throughout the months. Let's assume when we look at this budget, they're not going to have this policy anymore. So on the planner, we listed all the days that they get paid. We have their cash expenses listed in red. We have their credit cards listed in pink with their minimum payments. We have all the spending that can go back on a credit card listed in blue. And then we have these green circles for all of the statement dates for each of the credit cards. So if we look at their first paychecks on May 1st and May 5th, we have $2,338 to spend here. Now the cash expenses here are larger because their rent payment of $2,070 comes out of this check. Hopefully they have some money left over from the previous paycheck that they can use to pay some of that rent. Let's say they had $1,200 left over that can go with this. This would mean they have $3,538 for this pay period. So we know we have to pay the cash expenses of $3,268. This leaves $270 left over that we can pay to the credit cards. Now, unfortunately, if this is all they have left over, this is not going to cover what they need to pay here. But let's look at these other bills here to see which credit cards we had planned to use for each of those. So during this pay period here, we have the RCI, the Credit One, the Frontier, the Discover, the Credit One again, and another PayPal card. So all of these cards here is what we're looking at. We had spending going back on the RCI card, which is $110. We had spending going back on the Frontier card, which was $110. With the Discover card, I would probably use it for the TV and the food. And I think they're doing $160 a week for that. The Credit One, I would do the $2 phone storage and then the Prime bill. And the PayPal, I would do their Sun spending and the storage for $1. What we did was went in to see when we were going to do all of this spending. Then we go back and look at the credit card statement dates. So that spending of $110 here can go on the RCI card because that statement closes on the 5th. So they'll make the payment to the card on the 1st, wait for the statement to close on the 5th, and then do the spending on the 7th. But we go through and we do that for all of the cards. Now again, if they had more than this left over, they may be able to go in and pay all of these amounts here. If not, it's possible that they may just have to pay them a little bit late and pay them out of the next check. The first month doing velocity banking is always a little bit more difficult because you have to get the hang of it first, and depending on what you had left over from the month before, it can be a little bit tricky. Okay, so we had $3,538, the cash expenses of $3,268, which only leaves $270. So that would cover both of these cards here. What I would probably do is split that $270 and just pay $135 to each of these cards. Then, as I mentioned, if they had more money left over, they may be able to cover these. If not, we'll just have to wait and pay them a little bit late. And that will still be okay because these credit card statement dates don't close until after May 8th. So we'll still be able to pay the balances down to have them report at a lower amount. It does suck if we get a late fee, but if we don't have the money, we don't have the money. So we get paid again on the 8th. That was the paycheck that we had the life insurance policy coming out of, and we said we were probably going to cancel it. So let's look at that. So in this case, if we did cancel it, we would have no cash expenses due during that paycheck. So let's see what we can do with the $1,238. So we know we have to go in and pay these here. These amounts are the amount that's going to be spent back on the cards after the statements close. So we also have to pay a little bit extra for interest. So let's say we add $57 to this one to cover interest and we pay $300 here. This Credit One card, we're only putting $18 back on it. So let's say we round up and we pay $30 to this card. We also have to pay off this $5 here, which actually 5 of that could come from here. And then let's say we add $77 here and we pay $250 to this card. So let's say we've already paid these 3 cards here. We have to pay these cards. So out of the $1,238, we pay 300 minus 30 minus 250. So we still have $658 left, and we have to pay these cards here. This Mission Lane card, we have $124 going back on it. I would probably round this up and pay $170 to it, and then we don't have anything going back on the Care card. So maybe we'll just add a small amount over what the minimum is and pay $70 to it. Now again, the reason that we have to go in and make the payment larger is because we have to account for interest, because that's going to come out. So we have to make sure that there will still be room to put all of these expenses back onto the cards after the interest charge goes back towards the balance. Okay, so we had $658. We need to pay $170 and $70. So this leaves $418. If they cancel this policy here, I would probably take and put $400 of that into an investment account, or until they figure out exactly what they're going to do there, they could possibly put this into savings just to hold it for now. But if we cancel this, we don't want all of this to go to paying off debt, because we have to start getting something put up for retirement. Now let's look at the paychecks on the 15th and the 19th. The 15th and the 19th, we only have one cash expense due there, and that's $72. We do have quite a few credit card statements closing this week, and then we also have quite a few credit cards that are due. So we have $1,238 plus $1,100 minus 72, $2,266 that we can use to pay these credit cards. Now, with this card here, their balance on that card is only $574. What I would do is go in and pay this completely off to zero. And they're probably going to charge a small amount of interest. Let's just say it's $20. So the new balance would be $20, and then we have $638 going back on that card. So the next month we would go in and pay the whole $638. The balance again would report at zero. This time, since we paid off this whole balance of $574, we will no longer have the interest charges after this month. So we will put $638 on the card. Every month we go in and we pay $638 off on the card. So we're only paying $574 to this card because that will pay it off. With the Ally card, again, I would probably just round up, pay $400 to have the balance go down some. The Credit One card, maybe we pay $50 to it, just slightly over the minimum, because we know we're not going to use it for anything. And then the Credit One card here, let's say we pay $200 to it. The Credit One card here, we're putting $119 back on it, and we pay $200. The balance on that card right now is $464. So we go in, we pay $200. Let's say they add $16 for interest just to make the math easy. So the balance on the card would be $280. Now this is our new statement balance. Now this amount that it's going to report at, as long as we wait until after the statement closes before we put this back on here, this is going to be our new statement balance. So month 2, we can go in and pay off the remaining $280 that the statement balance was. The following month after that, we will have no interest on this card. So what that would look like, we put the $119 back onto the card. So the balance would be at about $399, but still our statement balance is only $280. So if next month we go in and we pay $280, we've completely paid off this statement balance and we will not be charged any interest. This is another reason why velocity banking is helpful, because we get to the point where we pay zero interest faster. And of course, most of us know it helps our credit score as well, because we're having those card balances report at lower utilization percentages, which is what really helps our credit score to increase quickly. Anyway, we've rounded up all these payments here. So we have $2,266. We pay $400, $574, $50, and $200. So we still have $1,042 left over. So we can bring that over here with the paycheck on the 22nd. So with the paycheck on the 22nd, we don't have any cash expenses and we have 2 credit cards to pay. So we have the $1,238 plus $1,042, $2,280 to pay to the cards. Again, we had no cash expenses. So same thing here, I would probably go in and round up to $200 here, and I would probably go in here and maybe round up to $300. Now, when we round up like this, we're accounting for that interest, and we're also having the balance probably go down a small amount. And you can pay more to them once you get comfortable with the paying and the spending on the cards. Make sure you're sticking to what you have planned in your budget as far as spending goes. If you don't stick to what you have planned, this makes it really difficult. So we have $2,280. We pay $200 to the Bank of America card and $300 to the Merit card. So we still have $1,780 left over here. We can take that $1,780 and roll it into the first paycheck of the month, because these were the paychecks that were the most difficult because of the cash expenses here. So if we had an extra $1,780 rolling over, we would be able to pay more to the credit cards here and make sure that they're all paid on time. But anyway, this is kind of how it's going to look. And again, you have to plan exactly which bills, which spending is going back on each one of the cards. That's super important. They do have the credit utilization chart, which is also helpful to go in and plan what payments you're going to make to the cards, because it also estimates the interest amount that needs to be added to the payment. So if you take a look at that and do this, that's really helpful. But the first month after this, I would just try to start small. Make sure you're putting up something either in savings or retirement for now. Just pay a small amount over what the bills are going to be, plus the interest calculation. Make sure that all of the credit card balances are going down, even if it's only a small amount at first. That means you're doing this correctly. And then once you get into the second month of doing this, it does start making more sense. And again, we carry this cash flow over here into the first paychecks for June, which actually comes on the 29th of May. Personally, I do not consider these extra paychecks. They just come a couple days early. And then if for now they're keeping this policy here, they will not have the $400 going into savings, and all of this is going to be very tight. Because even after we did velocity banking with their credit cards, they were still only positive. I think it was like $130 or $160. So if we still have this expense, we have to very carefully plan exactly what we're going to pay to the cards and exactly what goes back on them. I know when we're trying to do velocity banking with credit cards, it can be really confusing, especially when we don't have a lot of cash flow to work with. But once you do it for a couple months and you make sure your credit card balances are getting lower, it actually does start to make quite a bit of sense. So I know they're going to go in and try this. I think the main thing for now is figuring out what we are going to do here. But that's all I have for today. If you have any other questions about credit scores, velocity banking, debt, anything else, let me know.